All right, Tommy, welcome to the podcast.
Hey man, I'm super pumped to be on the podcast. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm excited to have you. And, I've been sort of aware of you and your story for a while now, but we actually bumped into each other just yesterday in person in Boulder, Colorado. And now here we are on the podcast. So it was great seeing you on Global Running Day and sharing a couple miles together.
Yeah, it's funny because like when we were running, I kind of barely remembered that it was Global Running Day. So I'm happy that I got we got that in, and I ran with a really cool group, and I'm really glad I got to finally meet you. Obviously, you're a legend in the space, so I was happy to kind of share some miles with you.
Yeah, it was super fun. We were at Scratch Labs Cafe, which is like a cool coffee
This was
shop
dope.
owned.
It was super dope. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
owned by
it was
Scratch
fun. I mean, it
Labs.
was like
And then, like I
I
was
didn't
in
expect
there
all
and
that.
there's like 30 people in there for Global Running Day and you just sort of came up to me and was like, "Hey, Jason, what's up?" And
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Yeah, because it was like I didn't. I mean, I just didn't. I know it was. They said it was gonna be at Scratch Labs, but I guess I just didn't expect like a real cafe and like real food and all that. It was really nice. And then I thought from what I've followed that group before, like on Instagram, it was a pretty big group for their normal group is much smaller, I guess. So it was a definitely a global running day type thing, and Puma was there for they had some demos, so I think they brought out some extra people, so it was a nice group.
Yeah, I think someone counted all the runners that were in the big group photo that we took and there were over 60 people there yesterday. So it was pretty cool to see that. Now, you actually haven't been a runner for like a really long time, and you just have just this really interesting story, especially over the last couple of years. Can you share with us a little bit more about how you first got into running and why you started?
Yeah, yeah. I first got into running in like 2018, and I started running after choosing the sober lifestyle in 2017. So on January 11th or January 10th, I had my last drink, and January 11th, I started on this like different journey of like trying to figure out who I was in the world and all that, um, and somewhere in there, I kind of like started looking in the mirror after a little bit of week or so or two of sobriety. I wouldn't even call it sobriety then. It was just like I just hadn't had a drink in a while. But then I started to see like I didn't like how I looked and felt. So I'm like, let me hit the gym. Got in the gym pretty heavy, and was like used all that like alcoholic energy, for like something positive, and found out that I really liked fitness and really liked that this process of like evolution and transformation. And then somewhere in that, like maybe 10, 11 months into sobrieties, a colleague or actually like a client of mine offered and said, "Hey, you should come to Chicago and run the Rock and Roll Half Marathon with my company. We raise money for Move for Hunger. It's a charity that like works with a lot of the moving companies in the country to collect the cans and money and all that stuff to provide to food pantries." I'm like, sure, I can do that. Like, I'm fit enough. Like, I lift like 6 days a week, so I can definitely do that. I do hit workouts like everybody else, and started to run because of that. And the training for my first half was very air quotes type of training. It was just like run as much as I could and do it faster and faster every time I got out there if I could, and ended up like hurting myself a little bit, like a fracture in like one of my metatarsals because I had the wrong shoes. So that's why I like shoes now is because you need the right ones, and just everything kind of rolled from there and just kept pushing and liked it and just kind of started to enjoy the process more and more.
I love it. Were you an athlete at all before you started this fitness journey? Because, we'll get into this a little bit later, but you have since turned into quite a good runner. And I would just love to know like a little bit about what your background was like before you started lifting weights and starting to train.
Yeah, so I was like growing up, we played a bunch of different sports, like in the neighborhood and stuff. So, but nothing like organized. It was just like whoever, if you had a baseball bat, we're playing baseball and soccer and all that. But I ended up playing soccer from like around like maybe 6 or 7 until 11 or 12 years old. Um, and then got into golf around like 2000 or around the age of 14. And played golf all the way through high school. Ended up being like the captain my senior year and all that stuff. So I was like, I really liked it, was good at it, and maybe I got a lot of time on feet, being out there on the golf course, walking around all day. So maybe that helped with some of the running stuff. But from the end of high school, pretty much all the way till like 33 years old or 32 when I stopped drinking, um, I was just, pretty inactive. Every now and then I would know somebody that was at the gym or going to the gym a lot, and I would like tag along with them a little bit. But it was like that battle, kind of that battle with alcoholism that always had me. That was more of the priority. Even when it was like less of a problem, it was always kind of in there, and it was like, I would go, but can't go. You're not, you don't go out and drink, and then the next day you're just like raring to go to the gym and lift weights or run or something. So it really took me to like pull that habit out of my life to even see what the possibility was, like in a physical or mental sense, like after that.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I think, you're definitely right. It's hard to train and run consistently when you're dealing with an addiction like that. But
Yeah.
I think me and the rest of the running community is glad you've made the decisions you have, because you do contribute so much to runners and the running community in general. I think it's also hilarious that you were a golfer, because if I didn't go out for the cross country team as a freshman in high school, I was
Mhm.
almost going to go out for the golf team. So I could have
I
been
should have
doing
done.
like, it's crazy, right? Like in an alternate timeline, I could have been interviewing you about golf on like the Strength Golf podcast.
Man, dude, don't say that too loud because the next thing you know, there'll be the Strength Golf podcast, and then buy the website now, buy the strengthgolf.com right now, and maybe you'll be able to sell it to somebody soon. Yeah, no, it's crazy like how stuff works out. Like, I mean, I started running, just not too long ago, like you said, like in 2018. So it's really been maybe 5 years or so. Um, and I'm not saying I'm good at it or anything like that. Like I'm not, competitive, really. But I just kind of like think about like, dang, like maybe I could or should have been doing this. But then that would like, undermine like all the things that happen, good and bad, to get to this point. Because, in this alternate universe of maybe me starting to run sooner, maybe I'd be burnt out by now and not on the Strength Running podcast.
Yeah, all roads lead to here, right?
Yeah, all roads lead to the Strength Running Podcast. Is that the slogan for the show?
um, yeah, this is really interesting to me, man. I think I'm really interested in hearing more about, once you got healthy from that metatarsal stress fracture that it sounded like you had.
Yeah.
I think I would like to know, like, what did your training look like once you were healthy, and not just trying to run as much as you can and run as fast as you can? Because, you have since run a 2:46 marathon, and you
Mhm.
did that in only like maybe 4-ish years of training. And I'd love to know a little more about, how did you start training in such a way to have this kind of progress?
Well, so I started in 18, and then I ran. I can't remember what I ran that the end of that year. Like I ran the some race, a couple 5Ks or something like that, and then I ran a 25K trail race in January in Michigan. And I forgot the time of it. It was like 15 and a half miles. I forgot the time, but it wasn't like what I thought it could be because I was used to like running on the road at that point, and I hadn't even been running a year yet. So it was like um, kind of a shock to like, dang, like I was much slower than I wanted to. But then at the same time, I think my sister was like, I think I was driving back because it was like 2 hours away. She's like, yo, you could qualify for Boston. I'm like, I don't even, number one, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't even know what qualifying for Boston would take. But then yeah, I had lived in Boston, and I think at the time she might have actually still been there. Oh no, she was already gone. But I lived in Massachusetts from 2017 to 2014. So I was living in the area, like I was maybe 40 minutes away when the Boston bombings happened. And I remember like, watching it on TV, seeing it unfold, seeing the city, like, look, the manhunt and all that stuff. And then seeing the city like rally the next year and like defy all the odds and do the race anyway. and like how much that meant to like the city, the state, the region, you know, New England as a whole, and then the country. So it was just like such an epic thing. And when she said it, I like immediately was like, yeah, I don't know what that means, but you know, she's like, I'll do the research. I'll figure out what you need to do. And so she gets back to me like really quick, and she's like, you got to run. I think she said, I think at the time I might have been, you got to run 305 or 305 or whatever my age was at the time. And I'm like, she's like, I think you can do that with some training. So it took me a while to like wrap my mind around that. And then like July or so, June or July in 2019, I was like, yeah, I want to do it. I had got referred to Luke Humphrey because he has like their running group. And I got referred to him because a lady that I was running with ran ultras, and one of the guys on Luke's team coached her. She was like, "Well, they wouldn't give you my coach because he's an ultra guy, but maybe there's a coach for you." So I told Luke, you know, in the email all my goals, and I want to qualify for Boston. Never ran a marathon before, only ran one half, and this 25K, and he probably thought I was a maniac. But then he referred me to Melissa Johnson White, who's one of his on his team. And July, I talked to her for the first time. I said I wanted to qualify for Boston. I said I'm willing to run a marathon. Um, and you know, like as a tester, you know, because I didn't believe that I would be like trying for my first marathon, you know, to go try to qualify. But she's like, well, we can do this. We'll shoot for based on your times in the 5Ks, we could probably work you down to a 315, maybe. And then if you can do a 315, maybe you could qualify. You could run a spring marathon the following year, 2020, and then qualify for Boston there. So I ran a 3:13:30. So I got the 3:15 goal time, and then COVID happened, so I wasn't able to like go ahead and try to like qualify for Boston. But it was like I all that to say like I made a decision, a pretty steep decision or a pretty big goal right away to like I knew that I couldn't play around much if I wanted to qualify by 2021. I needed to like really sign on to it. I needed to get a plan. So almost right away in my journey, within a year, I was already like fully like I had hired a coach and was ready to like try to progress, and it was all for like the Boston thing. It wasn't like this big long goal of like maybe one day 246. It was just like I just want to qualify for Boston. I want to go back to Boston. I want to run the race. And so like immediately I had less. You know, after 2 years, I had half time kind of playing around a little bit, and then half like serious training where it was 5 to 6 days a week. You know, and she did a really great job at like ramping me up. Like I saw everybody else doing 50, 60, 70, 80 miles a week. People that I don't know, obviously on Instagram. But I saw them and I'm like, I kind of kept hinting at like, should I be doing more miles? Should I be doing more miles? You know? And she's like, no, let's just, we'll we're not trying to put the cart before the horse or whatever. And we slowly ramped up, and it took so long to get to like where I'm at now. It's like literally took 4 years, 5 years to get to where I'm at now, where mileage feels comfortable. But I think I went at that my first time I qualified for Boston. I ran 248 and 248:43, and I was only at maybe 50 miles a week at the time, as a max. But that's just the progression. It took me a year and a half to get there. So really just patience and like dedication, and here we are.
Here you are, man. That's an amazing story. You're really giving a lot of credence to the idea that if you want to progress and if you want to progress fairly rapidly, a coach is a good idea. And it sounds like you
Yeah.
have an amazing coach who is very strategic and thoughtful about your progression and getting you to some relatively high mileage numbers, but not right
Mhm.
away. And I
Yeah.
love that gradual approach because I think everyone thinks that oh, 3 years, 4 years, like this is a lot of time. It's actually not that much
Mhm.
time. And going from someone who can run like 30 miles a week to someone who can run 70 miles a week does
Mhm.
take, a couple year approach. And one of the things that a lot of people don't get is that even if it takes you a couple years to get to that mileage level, you're still going to be improving all of your races during
Mhm.
that process, right? It's not like you have to wait a couple years to see the fruit of your labor,
Mhm.
right? Like it's going to
Yeah.
start happening and keep snowballing over time, which is just one of the really exciting parts about running. It's that progress, it's that improvement. I think something you experience very early on in your running careers. It's one of the most exciting parts of the sport. It's like, man, I put the work in, I get
Yeah.
these results, and it's just so rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, because it was that, and that's why, like, I think was so attracted to running. And then I think you see a lot of people in recovery, um, kind of gravitate towards endurance, because it's just it's so physical, and it's like a reminder of that, like, one day at a time, phrase that, like, that I first really heard more of, like, in my sobriety walk. But just that, like, really just being patient and being where you are, being where your feet are, being in the mile that you're in, 1 mile at a time, one rep at a time, all that stuff. And it just showed me in, like, a physical sense of what really being, like, strategic and thoughtful and patient each day can do if you have a plan and you add up to it. Because, like, when I first walked into, like, the rooms, like, the Alcoholics Anonymous, when people would tell me they had, like, a year of sobriety or 20, it was just like either one of those numbers baffled me because I was, like, so new to it. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, I don't understand how you even get that far. But they would tell me, like, one day at a time. For somebody that's been doing it for 20 years to tell you one day at a time, it's like, okay, come on, bro. Like, but then once you really think of it, like, he wouldn't be there or she wouldn't be there where they are without all those days adding up. And running just kind of reminded me of that, like, that patience. Because if I worried so much about, like, getting to this random mileage point or whatever and, like, defying the coach or saying, no, forget it, you're not progressing me fast enough to, like, this thing that I think I need to be at, I could be hurt more than because I definitely had some injuries, but I could be hurt more than I already, than I have been or before, and it could be worse. And or in the running just could I could be tired of it by now because I got ahead of myself. So running in life is just so much patience and, um, just being where you are and being present.
It's amazing the parallels that running has with so many other things, whether it's
Mm.
the journey to stay sober, maybe it's the journey to build a business or, parenting. A lot of things in life are like a day at a time, just be
Yeah.
patient. And, the old phrase that the days are long, but the years are short is, I think,
Hmm.
very, very true for running, where, yeah, every run might feel long or, your training sessions might be a little boring or difficult. We don't always have amazing runs every single day. But with that said, if you are consistent and progress somewhat intelligently, you are going to progress so quickly from like a long-term perspective that I think it's so worth it. Um, Tommie, I'd love to know a little bit more about like when did you start to realize, hey, I'm actually not half bad at this running thing? Because it sounds like your second marathon was 2:48. Were you like somewhere in the middle of that training cycle thinking to yourself, I'm not just going to qualify for Boston. I'm going to get like a BQ minus 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like, cause I don't know, like, when it happened or whatever, but so after cause I ran that 3:13:30 in October 2019 at the Detroit Free Press. Anybody that's, like, looking for an October race, definitely come out to Detroit because it's really dope. You go over to Canada, it's a great time. But we, like, after that, I took a little bit of time off, started slowly training because the goal was to run in April, in 2020 to qualify for 2021 Boston. And just that time off and, like, getting back to running and slowly working up and doing, like, like that base camp that you were talking about in your on your Instagram. But, like, we kind of, like, were building that base without me even knowing that she was just wanting to keep me running. I didn't really realize she was, like, trying to set me up to, like, start a really decent training block in January. But by the time we started in January in 2020, I was already, like, knowing that I was going after 254 almost automatically. It was like, it wasn't even like okay, let's get you to try to hit you right at 3. Like, I was automatically at, I think, whatever the 642 pace or something like that. Whatever, like, I think 254 is. And I felt so fit and comfortable with that for some reason. And in there, I was like, I never looked at it like I'm fast in comparison to, or I'm good at this. It was just what I was doing. Um, and I try not to get into that now. Like people say that I mean, I know that I'm not fast. Like I'm maybe faster than some, but there's people that are running like 209 marathons like like it's nothing. So like there's definitely for some perspective in there, but um, I realized I liked it. I realized I liked pushing myself, and I liked like striving for that because like not to like always tie it back to life, but for so long I didn't think that I was that type of person that could or would strive for something really because I spent so much of my life kind of throwing it away a little bit, and so to learn that I am like a through running and through sobriety to learn that I am a person that like can set a goal and like go after it in a very aggressive way and almost put blinders on and say forget all the signs and just follow my plan and keep going. It was just so big to me, and I just latched onto it and allowed that to build me as a person, build me as a runner. But I never looked at it like, I'm good at this. Like I just know I liked the feeling of like just grinding through a workout. I like the feeling of trying to talk myself into like just stay at the pace you're at. You don't need to speed up. Or I like the long run where it's like I just want to be done. I still got 6 more miles. I just like that whole concept of convincing myself sometimes to do it or pat myself on the back at the end once I got through something that I thought that I didn't really want to do.
Yeah, it's so cool to hear that you sort of enjoy the whole process of training, and you're right. I mean, running really does prepare you for so many other things in life, and it's also awesome to hear that your your current coach really embraced that whole concept that I feel like I've been talking about a lot recently, is this idea of the season before the season. Like if you want to have a
Mm-hmm.
very good marathon, the 16-week training block leading up to your marathon can't be the only thing that really
Mm-hmm.
leads to your success. Like you really need that base phase of training to really get you to another volume level, to build your sort of foundational fitness before you get into the more specific marathon stuff. And it sounds like you had just a really good base heading into your marathon training. So that's probably
Yeah.
a really good lesson for our listeners is if you want to have a breakthrough in any race, I don't think it's true just for the marathon, the season before the season is a really great idea to focus on. Just making sure that running is more like a lifestyle. You're doing it consistently. You're not just giving yourself to a race for 12 weeks, 16 weeks, because after all, only so much progress can happen over that kind of a time period. And Tommie, one of the things that you have done that I find incredibly inspiring is that you ran 3 major marathons in 60 days, which is admittedly not something as a coach that I would necessarily recommend for every runner to do. But tell us a little
I'm
bit
a good
more about like why
salesman.
you got into this.
Yeah, so like yeah, but can I just talk about something really quick? It's like a
Of
side
course.
note the way you're talking season for the season. So it didn't like so everything didn't work out like the way that I thought. Like I because of COVID, did wasn't able to run that race in April 2020. So then instead of like being smart and like maybe taking a little time off because I had trained for a whole training block, I just kept running, ran through all the way through the summer, was trying to increase mileage, trying to be patient, and ended up getting a stress fracture in my tibia, and it had me out from July 2020 through um, almost November. It was like like November because it was like right around Thanksgiving because I ran a turkey trot like as a time trial, like a virtual turkey trot. So I was out for 4 months because of like impatience and trying to push and not like listening to my body and all those things. So like one lesson is like, if you have to listen to your body, you can't just keep pushing. You are not a machine. You have to like listen to the signs and maybe do all the things that like you learn on Strength Running podcast about like staying healthy in rehab. But then on the other side of that, there's so many people that like that are hurt like right now and they're out for however long. I patiently came back from that stress fracture, and that's 5 months after starting to run again. That's when I ran the 248. So it's like you can do things wrong and get to like a bad point and you're injured and you're mad at yourself, but then you can also learn from them very quickly if you just don't forget it. Because like a lot of times we as runners and people in life in general, we have a bad time or we're down, and as soon as we're back up, we forget all the lessons that we were just telling ourselves, like, I'm never gonna do this again, never gonna do that again. But we jump right back into it, and then we find ourselves in the same position. So just wanted to share that part of it because it sounds like, oh wow, 313, 248, but there's like a whole year in there where like I had to learn a bunch of tough lessons, you know, about running and about life, but then was able to like apply those lessons the next time around. But so sorry for the tangent. But then when it comes to like that 3 hour, the three marathons in 3 months, like, so I called my coach up and I'm like, hey, got this idea that I want to do because I was really upset because I ran Boston 2021. Wait, what's this year? 2022. Sorry, I ran Boston 2022, and I went into Boston with an injury. So I was injured 4 weeks or so before the race. So I had to like cut my miles down to pretty much nothing before to try to like get there somewhat healthy. And having a knee issue on 13 miles of downhill pretty much just didn't work out for me that day. So by the time I got to like 15 or 16, even before Newton, I was just destroyed. Like I was jogging, walking. The uphills were the good part because that's when my knee hurt like the least. So I ended up finishing that race pretty bummed out. But I like wanted to get some type of redemption, and we called it I called it the Redemption Tour. I'm ridiculous. My friend made shirts. They had my face on it. It said Redemption Tour, like old school, like hip hop tour vibes.
I've seen
Had like
pictures of the shirt. They're pretty dope.
yeah, yeah, they're really dope. The guy who my friend Aaron created them, and he just did a really great job. So people were buying them and stuff, and like I saw people like in like these cities with them on. It was really creepy. But so I called her, and I had already gotten into Chicago because of my qualifying time for the. I used the same time to qualify for Boston. So I had that race already there. But Chicago's too late for the next year's Boston qualifier. So I had to throw in Erie Marathon a month before. Didn't want to not run a world major called Chicago. So I'm like, now I'm doing two marathons. But then I got an offer from New Balance that says like, hey, you know, PR project, me and my friends, you should come out. Me and my friend, you should come out to run the New York City Marathon. And I'm like, sure. So now we have three marathons. I said, hey, coach, got this idea, and I know you're gonna think I'm crazy, but I think I could do it. And so she built it like a progressive plan. Like it's not necessarily what you want to do. She knew that I needed to run well in Erie to get to requalify, but the mileage just ramped up. Like so, I barely hit like 50 miles going into Erie. Then I took like 3-4 days off, ramped back up a little bit, then tapered a tiny bit, and then ran Chicago as a workout, a very long workout. And then the goal was to go after New York as the big goal, the big A race. But it's like 70,000 degrees last year in New York, so it didn't end up being the best race ever. But they all ended up being under sub 3.
That is just amazing. Three sub 3 marathons in 60 days. Um, what made you decide to take the last marathon as the kind of the
I,
hard one? Because,
I don't know.
from my perspective, I'm like, man, you probably were feeling a little bit beat up, fatigued, even when you're standing on the starting line over there in New York City.
No, to be honest, I felt really, I actually felt pretty good about it. It was kind of as odd, but I think the heat was a big factor um, of why I didn't run the way I wanted to. I think I ran really well for the day. I think I did 2:58, um, and I was proud of like the effort because of the two. Like I mean, I just did two marathons, you know, recently before that, so I was like happy with it. But I think I picked it because it just sounded like the finale of the thing. And if I had could do it again, I would have had Chicago be the A race. And then like just kind of had more fun in New York. But I didn't know it was going to be that hot. But then it's also a hilly course. I didn't really put a bunch of thought into it, to be honest, Jason. I can't. I just thought it would be like great to like that be like the last stop of the tour. You know,
Yeah.
it was very vain. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's the grand finale. I get it. I
Yeah, I
understand.
mean, yeah, who has a grand finale and then has another show after? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's fun. So what did your recovery look like after the second race when you ran Erie?
So the first race was Erie.
Oh, first
Second
race
race
was
was
Erie.
Chicago. Yep. So it was it was pretty like I mean I think I took maybe Monday. I think I started running again maybe Thursday or Friday of the following week. So it was just foam rolling and trying to like stay somewhat loose. And I wasn't like super sore because I was I think I was very fit at that moment, and I didn't use a bunch of it. Even though I mean it's still 26.2 miles, so I was definitely a little banged up, but it was a really flat course, so it provided me with the ability to like kind of get back running fairly quickly. So I took 3 4 days off, started running again, but it was just a bunch of foam rolling, trying to get as much sleep as possible, trying to you know eat correctly to help with inflammation, all that stuff. Um, and then just got right back into some easy runs like the next Friday and then Saturday, and then back to like a full schedule the following week after that.
That's so impressive. I think it's really hard for a runner like me to imagine doing that because every marathon I've run has really beat my body up. Like I don't think it's something my body really likes doing because after every race, I'm like, okay, I gotta not just like take care of myself so that I'm no longer sore, but I need
Yeah,
to do some prehab so I don't re-injure myself because
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
something is going on with my body that is just rebelling against my decision to run a marathon. And so you had this like great redemption tour. I think it's so great to see you go sub 3 for all these marathons. And I think a big part of this is just like your drive. Like you fell in love with the sport and you're just so interested in it. Like that passion is really carrying you through all the hard
hmm
training and all these big races. And then you ended up running Boston 2023 just a couple months ago. And that's where you
yeah,
actually ran your all time PR, right?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
So you've run pretty fast on all difficult courses. It sounds like you haven't really
yeah.
raced any flat and fast courses, huh?
So it doesn't seem like it. So like I don't know what it is. So my PR for the 5K is now on a hilly course. My PR for the half my PR for the half. We ran the Savannah Rock and Roll half marathon in 2021, and it was the year that they canceled the full marathon 1 hour before the race because it was what was it called? Tropical storm. What's that comedian's name? Dang it! It was the tropical storm, and it was
Michelle.
like 30. No, no, it was the black. It's a black comedian. God damn it. So yeah, so I can't remember her name now. But it was her name, right? But it was a tropical storm. It was 30 like 3 degrees or something, and it was like raining, windy, wind gusts up to like 20 miles an hour that day. They canceled the marathon because they thought it was too dangerous for people to be out there for an extended period of time. So they canceled the marathon 1 hour before the race. And then they had us standing there for like 40 minutes before they started the race because they were trying to clear the streets or something. People were so upset, bro. Like it was ridiculous. Like 40 minutes standing in the corrals, like waiting to go, getting rained on. But that's where my PR for the half is. So like I don't necessarily do well apparently like in normal races, or I just don't sign up for them. I don't know what it is. I think I need an agent just for like signing up of races. Like let's pick you a good race, bro.
Yeah, let's choose a flat and fast course. You'd probably run pretty quick on a really fast course. So it's just exciting to hear about not only like your progress, but the rate of progress and also the fact that you're doing it on courses like the Boston Marathon. You ran sub 3 on the New York City course. That was my first marathon and I ran that way back in 2008. That is a difficult marathon course.
Yeah,
Anyone who
yeah,
runs a PR or fairly quick at New York is a strong runner for sure. So yeah,
yeah,
we need to get you on
yeah.
like a
Sure.
Chicago or a Berlin course so that you can just fly.
Yeah, I'd love to because I did Chicago, but I did it as like a workout. Like so, I was like the first 10 miles I ran, she had me run 10 miles at like a certain pace, and then the next 10 miles at this next lower pace, and then whatever I had left in like the last 10K. So it was definitely a progressive run. And afterwards, I'm like, dang, I really should have gone after it today. But Berlin would be great. Like I'd love to. I was just telling one of my friends is going to Berlin. He raised money for St. Jude, and I'm like, dang, I wish I could run because like that would be a course where I feel like I'd try to leave it all out there. You know?
Yeah, and it sounds like you have at least 3 of the 6 world marathon majors already at this point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You're halfway there,
yeah.
man.
Man, I know. I just got to get overseas now. You know, just got
Yeah,
to
you need
get out of the
Tokyo,
country, go run.
Berlin, London. London's a fast
London,
course. You
yeah,
could get a good time there, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. I want to do all of them. Get that 6 star and whatever they add up, like when they add the seventh, I'll do that too. I, I I really just like the marathon. Like I don't necessarily I wouldn't say love it, but I just like the fact that it's so daunting. Like it's such this huge undertaking, and I love that like no matter how fit you are, for the most part, and maybe unless you're like Elliot Kipchoge or something, you don't really know. Like I can feel like I'm gonna do well today. Um, I've done all the things that I can do. I followed the plan. I ate well, I slept well, all that stuff. I just love the fact that it's still life though. You still just don't know. Like it could be a GI issue or some silly stuff, that could just throw it all. It makes it feel like it's all for nothing, but it's just such a like it's exhilarating to like stand on the start line of a marathon, knowing that you're going to be out there for some hours and you're just gonna give it everything you have, Like it's just such a weird thing. Like a 5K, it's like intimidating because it's like, like how this is about to be crazy. But it's only 18, how many ever minutes, you know what I mean? It's like it's less it's short period of time compared to a marathon. But the marathon is just so tricky, man. So tricky.
You're getting me really excited to line up on the starting line of a race right now. Yeah, like you said, it's exhilarating.
Yeah.
And I think that aspect of uncertainty is one of the things that
Hmm.
makes running so exciting because it's not preordained. Even if you have the perfect buildup, the perfect sleep, diet, you do all the little things that I'm always talking about. The marathon is such a difficult race that it's all still up in the air, even if everything has gone perfectly. And some people might not like that, but I think it's exciting. I think it switches things up a little bit. You're lining up on the starting line and you just don't know what's going to happen. And some
Hmm.
people may not like that. I absolutely love it.
And I love that, like, no matter what you do, like, even if, like, so as soon as I finish Boston, like, it's a PR. And as soon as I'm done, though, like I'm like, okay, I can do better. Like it's not even
Yeah.
like I can do better than that. Like because I remember like it vividly, like where I think I went wrong and what I could do next time, and that's really cool to me. Like I, because maybe it's just some of us are just like that, where you just want to like find a new challenge within the thing that we just did well at or something. But like I just feel like I just covering for like lost time, maybe, from just not living up to whatever potential maybe I had or have. And now I get the opportunity to do that. And running is just like that quick reminder that like no matter what you do, you can always kind of readjust. What if you bomb a marathon, you can readjust and come back stronger the next time. Or if you do your best ever, typically you can find a little like moment like, oh, right here is where I maybe went wrong. You want to hear my theory for Boston?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I going into the race, I said I broke it into 3 parts. So I thought Boston was like a 3-part course. So one, from start line to like Newton is number one. You just have to like know that it's going to be rolling hills, not all downhill. Be prepared for those, other hills, but get through that part healthy because like the knee thing. So I wanted to make sure I got through that. So that's one. Two is the Newton Hills. Three, I thought was from the top of Heartbreak, all downhill, nice and pretty, all the way to the finish line. But it's not. So I think where I think it's 4 parts now, is from part three is Heartbreak till about like 23, and then it gets a little weird there, like when you start kind of like winding a bit. And part four is like that finishing stretch where that would include like the Sitco Hill and then that underpass, and then Hereford. Like I think you need to be mentally prepared for it to get harder again. Like because from heartbreak to a certain point, you feel like, okay, I'm going now, and now it's time to race. But if you're not prepared to have to climb a couple little hills again when your legs are just trash, you could lose. I saw people running well and like lost it right at Sitco, like just couldn't even continue. And if you're not ready and you think you're on the home stretch at mile 21, 22, it could be a rude awakening. So it's four parts, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Boston course is just so hard for all of those reasons, right? Like the course is just challenging in a very unique way with where on the course those hills are placed.
Yeah,
And it's funny that you mentioned those final hills, like in the last couple miles, especially when you go under that overpass right before you take a right on Hereford, because in 2013, the year of the bombings, I was actually watching the race from that area, and then in 2014, I ran the race, and it's amazing how much that little uphill after that
it's
overpass
ridiculous.
completely destroys your mindset, because you think you're almost done. You think you're done with the hills. And then this little incline comes out of nowhere and it just slaps you in the face. It's so challenging. But then you have the
Yeah,
whole amazing finish.
Sitco is,
Yeah, that was
and
the
then the
hard one.
finish is like the finish is it's an epic finish. Obviously, it's Boston, right? But it's so far. When you turn left on Boylston, it's like, like in the movies when like somebody realizes they have a long way to go and it zooms away from them. You know what I mean? Like
Yes,
in
yes.
whatever cartoons or movies. Like that's what happens when you turn left. You think that because there's so many races like Chicago, you turn left and you're done. Like you could trip and fall from that last corner to the finish line. In Chicago, but in Boston, it seems like it's a mile away. Like, cause you're just running, and I was like talking to myself, like you can make it. Like I was already there, like I could see it, but I had to like talk myself into like, don't fall, don't give up. It's right there.
Yeah, that Boylston stretch is at least a half a mile, but I think it might be a full kilometer. It's actually way longer than it seems.
I think it's like they say it's like 600 meters or something like that.
In my mind,
I
it's
don't think it's that.
600 miles.
It's legit 600 miles. In all honesty, and so, you know what else is a really long stretch is that I swore I lied to like 70 people. I told them that that turn in New York when you go out of the park and then you turn back up that little hill and you see like the big sign at the end of the road before you turn back into the park. I don't know what street that is, but when you turn right, it's a slight uphill before you get to the point where you go back into the park. I thought that that was like a mile, and it's literally a quarter mile long. I was just so out of it by then. I thought I was on that road forever.
Oh yeah, the brain certainly plays tricks on you when you're past
Yeah,
the 20-mile mark in a marathon.
yeah.
Well,
That's
Tommy,
you have
this
to
has
be ready.
been really fun, and I love hearing about your story. I love hearing about the the trajectory that you're on, and also just the velocity of your trajectory. I think is super exciting. So I'm definitely going to be following along and cheering for you when you're
No,
lining up
thanks, man.
next. When is your next race? What are you doing next, buddy?
Man, I'm doing like this what I'm calling the summer of speed. Just having fun, signing up for 5Ks, 10Ks, gonna do like the Tracksmith Twilight series that's here and they're gonna have one in Detroit and then one in Ann Arbor. So I'm just looking to get faster and have fun. And then maybe sign up for like a half marathon in September and then see if if I end up doing like a full at the end of the year. That would be kind of cool too. But my goal is to just do a bunch of 5Ks, 10Ks, have some fun, train real fast, train hard, keep the mileage at like something fairly reasonable to do a lot of speed with, um, and just keep at the summer speed, man.
I love it. And from my coaching perspective, that's what I love to see marathoners do is take some time away from the marathon, focus on getting fast,
Mhm.
focus on having fun with that because it's just so different than marathon training. So good luck with it all, man. Where can we follow along and hear more about the journey?
Just go to Instagram. It's at Tommie Runz at TOMMIE_RUNZ. Everything's there. I got a podcast too, and you could look. The link is all there, and I post a lot. I travel a lot for like little things with brands and things like that. So I share the running journey, but then I share also like these new opportunities that I've had an opportunity to be a part of. And I think that's really cool too because I didn't necessarily see anybody that looked like me on that side of it either. Like not just on the running side, but on the contenting and brand trips and all that. Like this, like the trip. The reason why I was in Colorado was for an ASICS Gel Kayano 30 summit, and to be there and to be one of the few Black folks that was there is just it's an honor. And but it's such an honor that I try my best to share that journey with the people that follow me. So it's the page is kind of all over the place. I run a lot, but I also travel quite a bit now, and so it's the complete journey is there. So please just go give me a follow, and I'll just keep on sharing the journey.
Yeah, well, we love the journey. The journey is so exciting for us to watch, and you do a great job with your content, sort of communicating the excitement of the journey, the excitement of what it's like to train and run some of these races. So it's just super exciting, man. Thanks again for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No, but thank you really quick. I just want to say you are like you're a staple to the running community. Keep doing your thing. We all watch the show and we all like listen, especially lately, like keep up with the reels with the like little snippets because I use the let Jesus take the wheel method on my last 5K, which I was telling you about. You just come with so much knowledge and education, and you do it in a way that doesn't make anybody that's listening feel bad about what they're doing. You do it in a way that makes people want to like step like rise to a challenge or try something new. And it's cool because like since I have a coach, sometimes I hear other people coaching or giving advice, and it just makes it feels like it's more of a if you're doing this, you're doing it wrong, and you don't do that, and it makes it easy for people like myself that are already kind of like definitely knee deep in this running thing, but it also the people that are new. It's like you're their coach just because they're listening to your podcast. So thanks so much for what you do for the sport.
I appreciate that, Tommy. Thanks so much.